All right, so welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Most of you kind of know the drill that are here, but just in case, these are held every other Wednesday from 1:30 to 3 in hopes of just educating people about different things in the brain injury world. So we do have it scheduled all the way through August now, so keep joining us throughout the summer. We are very excited to have Lynne Becker with us today. She is a biostatistician and epidemiologist. She's testing my vocabulary this morning, or this afternoon, I guess. She has 20 plus years experience in clinical trials, but most importantly, she is a caregiver to her 2 daughters with TBIs and stroke. This unforeseen journey led Lynne to tackle the biggest problem for people with brain injuries, lack of research. So I am going to let you take it away from there. She's really recently launched a new startup called Power of Patience. So she is going to kind of explain all of that to us. And you have hosting powers if you have a presentation you want to share, or it's up to you if you want to just chat, but welcome and thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. And I do have a little presentation. It's not overwhelming. And one of the things that I like to always do is to certainly pause and take questions whenever it comes to you. So I have no problem with that. And also I am happy to stick around and walk through some registration to show people even more so about what the dashboard can do. So with no further ado, I will share my screen. And this is the one. Will everybody let me know when you can see it?
You can see it. You're just not in presentation mode, but there you are. There you are. No,
yep. I'm gonna put it in presentation mode now. So, so again, Power of Patience, and it is a digital health app that I created, and I'm gonna tell you how and why this came about with a little bit more details in just a second. But overall, our mission is to empower patients with brain injuries. We do this through engaging, informing, and educating, all towards getting people clinical trials and accelerating clinical trials in this space. And that's our big goal as well. So this dashboard that I have created came over years of not just me experiencing, honestly, bad treatment for my daughter and trying to figure out what in God's name can I do next, and using my energy and resources in the clinical trial space, because I did spend nearly 25 years designing clinical trials, running them, managing them, not just at corporate and academic levels, but all the way up to the Department of Defense, where I ran the TBI portal for the US government. So I was shocked at what little information was out there, and even more so that I kept being told, you know, relax. And so here is the why is it me? So I am a mom, I am a caregiver, and I am a researcher. And I do not know of anybody else in this space that can kind of, you know, transcend the 3 divisions, because it gives me a unique perspective. And honestly, it isn't just my one daughter who is injured. I have 2 daughters, and they both have suffered severe traumatic brain injuries. And, you know, I'm going to be very transparent, which I am as a person as well as a company. I have to tell you, I had no clue what a concussion even meant, you know, 10 years ago when my oldest daughter was first injured, which was from a tennis ball hitting her dead center in the eye at a camp, a summer camp. And she was away at camp, but she never received even a nurse's evaluation. And she was knocked out, and there was blood all over the place, and she nearly lost her eye. That's how hard she was hit. But because the eye was so visibly damaged, I kept chasing her eye to be intact when she had other concussion or head injuries that then later came about because of volleyball. But I even made a big mistake back then, 10 years ago, because I called an ophthalmologist. I didn't call an optometrist, and I honestly didn't even know about having that expertise. And I don't know if it was even available in our town, which is another big issue that people with brain injuries have to face. So fast forward to 2015, my youngest daughter was hit in the head A boy hit her with a soccer ball intentionally. It was not a game. And he hit her so hard with such force, she was knocked out. She was hit on her left temple, and it also tore her optic nerve. And when she finally came to, she couldn't speak. She felt like she was underwater. And these are stories that everyone shares, so I don't want to belabor the point. But what I guess they picked the wrong mom, to be honest with you, because if something was going to go wrong, it went wrong at every possible step of the way with her rehabilitation process. So trying to figure it out, trying to be, proactive in her care, finding doctors that only told me for the first 18 months, relax is just a concussion, when her entire body broke and had to learn to crawl and walk and talk and everything all over again. I just couldn't swallow that pill. Like, I think that was enough for me. So I launched Power of Patients. And what it does is it serves three constituents: patients, providers, and the research industry. And we're not an EMR. We're not another healthcare system. We are truly a patient-centric oriented application that we customize every person's entry to their needs. So for example, if you say that I have these symptoms where I have unexplained sadness, or I can't hold on to things, or I have no balance, or I can't interact with my family, you can customize your entire platform specific to your needs. And that's the uniqueness. So if you think back in the day when we went to our doctors and we told our doctors, this is what's bothering me, and the doctor listened. The doctor didn't sit there with a tablet in their hands looking for ICD codes for billing. And I'm going to call them out on it, because that's not healthcare. And so what we're really doing is we are empowering patients to now have the ability to actually give the doctor, here is my timeline. Here is what happened to me. So what was really exciting was when patients started giving this report, which you see in the middle, to their doctors, and doctors started calling us and saying, hey, what is this? I want access. So that's proof in the pudding right there that they are going to listen if the patients bring this data to them and empower themselves as well. All the while, the more we can actually collect data so that we can find like individuals. And I want to explain this. This is my expertise about clinical trials and how this kind of comes in. Traumatic brain injuries have not been studied, not to the extent of cancer or any other kind of indication. And I'm going to tell you how many. Since the FDA started requiring tracking, there's been 1,200 TBI studies. That same timeline, which is 1989 to present, the same timeline, there's 57,000 cancer trials. That's no comparison, and that's an injustice. So what is in our benefit is that we don't need tens of thousands of people in one injury classification. We need 100. We don't need a lot. And so I know everybody says, oh, well, one brain injury doesn't behave like another. And you're right, it doesn't. But that's because we haven't studied enough of the same kind of injuries. And that's the importance of what this dashboard can do. So we use de-identified data, and it's very secure. And we started initially with traumatic brain injury people, but now we have stroke people and Parkinson's people, because brain injuries have this huge overlap, right? A lot of them share all the same symptoms. And in a presentation I'm preparing for next week, I have to discuss, unfortunately, suicide and acquired brain injuries. And it's real, right? It's no joke. And I will also be very honest with you. When my youngest daughter was going through her third cognitive therapist, and it took 3 just to find somebody who could even deal with her brain injury and the certain nuances that presented, my daughter, I would come home holding my breath, thinking, will she be alive? And it's a very, very Halloween feeling for a mom to go through this. And I can't imagine what a person is going through. I always try to put myself in people's shoes. In my oldest daughter's case, I received a phone call, I'm going to jump in front of a bus, out of the blue. And she was doing great. Like, she was able to hold it together until a breaking point. So there are signs. And unfortunately, in pulling the research, there's not enough research in this space either. You can say, okay, if you show signs of depression, if you show signs of withdrawal, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean in a daily life? And that's actually what we have been able to discover on our dashboard. So I'm thankful I had to go through this exercise in preparation for the talk next week, but I wouldn't have imagined that the data was right there. So we have this incredible, powerful data. It's all HIPAA compliant. It's GDPR compliant. If you don't want to share it, you don't share it. That's the difference of us versus EMR systems. This is all driven by the patient and the patient choices. We want you to share. We want you to get better, and we're going to help as much as we can. But if you say no, you say no. And it's just that simple. I'm really anal about data, in case you haven't figured that part out yet. Okay, why is this a problem? Okay, it's a problem, and we all know this in this group. 60 to 80% of the cases are missed. Why? Because there's no diagnostic test. Okay, and then you get misclassified, and I assure you, there are close to 90% of the cases that have ocular impairment. So that's something we can all kind of address. We know that there's vestibular impairments. I mean, I meet people all the time and they are standing still talking to me, and you would think they were drunk because they literally fall over at noon. And I know they weren't drinking. I mean, it is amazing to me how little people are being told about we can help this, right? It's through functional rehab. But what are the right treatments? This is the part that we don't know. Good news. The NIH is increasing their funding. Now, pre-COVID, in 2019, the NIH had poured $200 million into clinical trials. So let me give one little simple explanation about why clinical trials are so important. The way our healthcare system works is we have to have proof, okay? Proof means best practices, standardized procedures, etc. And an ICD code comes out of this proof. There's not enough ICD codes that exist for people with traumatic brain injuries to be receiving adequate care. So how do we fix this? We do the studies. The studies get produced with presentations and results. The publications are taken care of, and then industry comes in and best practices come in, and then insurance comes in. So it's a long, long cycle. However, the good news, again, is that because it's understudied, we don't need hundreds of thousands of people. We need 100 in each category. That's the power of statistics, okay? So in 2020, right before COVID hit, the NIH doubled the funding from $200 million to $400 million, and that's huge. That's how pharma starts to get involved, and that's who we need to be involved. And I do truly believe in both a balance of Eastern and Western is my personal philosophy, but I believe that there are so many unanswered questions that is there a therapeutic that we can use to reduce that inflammation to accelerate somebody's rehab? I'm sure there is. They just haven't asked the question. So again, as a group, collectively, we can truly make a difference. So how does it work? It's free. There's no reason to not join. It's free. You will never be charged. A caregiver will never be charged. And ideally, a doctor will never be charged, because we'll be able to prove this through best practices, and insurance will pay for this. This is the goal. Pharma will pay for this, the people who really need the data. And again, it's all de-identified, but it takes 5 simple steps. We talk about your injuries. You have to always do basic demographic data, but I don't even ask race, because I don't want that to be a barrier to anybody. And then we talk about your injury, we talk about your symptoms, and we try to walk you through all the scenarios. And then we talk about triggers. Triggers are very important. And again, it's something that is not well discussed with audiences or with people, I should say. Triggers are also synonymously being used with social determinants of health. And what the heck does that mean? Years ago, the CDC and the NIH said a social determinant of health is how well a person can heal or get better or get access to care. And they categorized it as your social economic status, your zip code, and your income. Well, that couldn't be any further from the truth. So what they did was they recently expanded it to, okay, let's include transportation, and let's include access to food. Well, okay, that's kind of sort of true. But then they finally opened it up and they said, okay, anything outside the doctor's office. Well, that's life, right? That is the quality of your living. And that's something that I personally have always tracked in my research, is like, what impedes you from getting better? And in one instance, it could be, I am tired. In another instance, it could be the rain is causing a migraine. I mean, whatever it's going to be, this is what is important to know, what exasperates your conditions and what even gets them better. So that's called triggers or social determinants of health, and we track that as well. And then we ask you, when do you want to be reminded? And this is what it takes. So it takes about 2 minutes to sign up. And this is what you get every day. So we have a therapy dog. Her name is Sally. She is on the dashboard, and we're going to be animating her soon because we want her to be everybody's therapy dog. It was my daughter's therapy dog. And she's in the upper corner right there. If you see her on the left-hand side, it takes about 30 seconds every single day to track. Sally comes and gets you. And that report on the right-hand side, is the report. It's your movie, it's your timeline, it's your ups, it's your downs, right? This is what you get to show your doctor. So we have incredible, powerful testimonials. One stroke patient got on the dashboard, and she has a very rare condition. And when hurricanes were coming, before she started tracking, she had no idea that barometric pressure impacted her intracranial pressure. And because her condition was so rare, she ran to the doctor. They admitted her to Shepherd's for a week. Every time of her life was gone. And she felt like a sitting duck waiting for another stroke. And then after a week, after the hurricane passed, she was released. And it wasn't until she started tracking, she was like, oh my God, it's weather related. And she brought it to her doctor, and she's like, look at what I discovered. So now, and I actually call her during hurricane season because I know what it's like. A hurricane's destroyed my home, but I call her and I say, how are you doing? What's going on? She goes, I'm not in the hospital. I'm having a hard time, but I'm managing. So the empowerment there alone speaks a volume that you don't lose more of your life that you're trying so desperately to get back. So you can track from your phone, you can track from your tablet, you can track from your computer. You do not have to download an app to do this. You can put a little reminder on your homepage or your home screen of your phone. And when Sally comes to get you, you can track multiple times a day. She sends you an email, you click on the button, and it's that simple. It truly is that simple. So one of the things, a couple weeks ago, I presented with some vision therapy doctors, which the Syntonic College, and I love working in eyes. They're my favorite. And they, listen, your eyes are the window to the soul, but they're the pathway to your brain. And I am more and more convinced. So this is an example. We worked with a neurooptometrist. It's an example of how we have tried to capture as many possible symptoms broken down by what we call domains. So we have emotional domains, cognitive domains, environmental, vision, vestibular. But what's great, again, you customize it. If there's something there that we haven't found or figured out, you put it in. And we have discovered 18 new symptoms that nobody else has thought about that impact and affect a brain injury person. And let me tell you my sources. So I shared with you that I worked for the TBI portal. So I have the VA documents. I have the TBI portal documents. I have some major Ivy League documents. I have all of my daughter's doctor's documents and everything I could pull off of the NIH. And I cross-referenced every one of these to make sure we could be as inclusive as possible. And we still discovered new symptoms. This speaks to how much we don't know, right? And it's upon us to make it happen. So this was a simple little example that I did for the vision doctors. And this is one of the things that we are adding on next on our dashboard. We listen to patients. We had one patient say, because we have a journal aspect, if you track in the morning and something, blows up and you need to track again later that day, we have a system so that you can go back in and you can just journal what the heck happened, because on the back end side, on the computer side, we can figure out where it all belongs for you, so you don't have to worry about it. So one of the things that I noticed in my one daughter's case, my youngest daughter, she did not receive syntonic therapy. My older daughter, my oldest, Alex, she did after her 6th TBI. And so Natalie's left eye didn't work. Alex's right eye didn't work. And so there's some slight differences, but the bottom line was Alex recovered faster, and I honestly do believe better. I don't have all of the data yet, but just again, when I look at certain things, I'm able to tell. I don't know about any other caregivers if they're here. When I look at my daughters, physically look at them, I can see if they're having good or bad days. It's very clear in a person's face. So that's an important feature. So what I was getting at with this example on this vision therapy in this case report is we try to tailor everything to the symptoms of what people are experiencing. So what we're going to be moving forward with next is bringing in a doctor's portal. So a doctor, if you choose to say, okay, I love my doctor, I want my doctor to know what's going on, then we can create what's called a virtual multi-grand rounds case, because again, where we were in Charleston, South Carolina, we had to drive 2 hours to a doctor. We had to drive another hour to her vestibular doctor. And I did it, right? If I could get my daughter better, I was going to do it. And I think anybody feels like that, but you're carrying around binders with you, right? Because these EMR systems don't talk and private practices don't talk, but you, the patient, you're the center, you're the nucleus. So you can then share this much easier with your doctors. We have a panel so that caregivers can track for multiple people as well. So right now we're letting doctors use the caregiver track for free if they want to do that with their patients. So that's kind of where it is. This is just a quote. I have other quotes, but that's it. Now, any questions? I would love to walk everybody through and do registrations, or it's up to the group.
You mentioned syntonic therapy, that people weren't aware of that. What is that?
Yeah, it's incredible. It is born out of optics, which is, I think 80 or 100 years old. And it's certain kinds of lenses and glasses. And so let me explain it better by example. My daughter, Natalie, she would go 3 times a week to her vision therapy doctor. And she would wear certain kinds of glasses. She would do certain kind of mechanical exercises, if you will. They would cover her eyes. They would make her do memory things and walk on planks. There's a whole bunch of stuff. They tried with these kind of 3D type glasses. I believe one was red and I believe one was green. And she was to look at a light source, whether it was the sun or a light. And she was to look at that for 5 minutes a day. Now, this was a brand new doctor to trying to learn about syntonics and optics, and perhaps the prescription in terms of how much she should do was not correct, or perhaps Natalie wasn't ready for it. Again, we don't know. But Natalie did start vomiting immediately upon trying to put these glasses on. And I mean the serious concussion, like vomiting. Now, interesting enough, Alex, my oldest daughter, she went through a true Syntonics program. And basically her doctor would give her, so she went to the doctor every other week, only once. And she had at-home exercises, and he would give her these lenses. And the lenses, in conjunction with your pencil push-ups or your finger movements, or she had to look away and come back. And she did have colored glasses as well too, but it was mostly different kinds of lenses, and it would work with her, the suppression. And I think it was how quickly she was able to refocus and things like that. And so it's prism glasses in a nutshell. And some doctors use colored lenses as well. Unbelievably powerful. Now, I also want to tell you also one other thing. For both of my daughter's cases, because Natalie did not get to a vision therapy doctor for closer to 2 years by the time we found one. So it was 18 months before we got a real diagnosis that she has a TBI. Oh, and by the way, she stroked. Then we had to start finding doctors. So it was about 2 years when we found a vision doctor. Alex, my guess is, but it's not documented, my guess is her first injury when her eye was deflated so much from that tennis ball when she was 9, I suspect that was her first real impairment. And then she had all these volleyball injuries. And then her last one, she was run over by a car. So, I mean, this poor child, right? So she reported such severe headaches when she was trying to do her at-home exercises. And the doctor warned her. He said, you have to unlearn, your brain has to unlearn these bad habits. And she called complaining a lot. And I think that's the importance of a caregiver. And that's the importance of what I'm trying to build with our community is that, don't go it alone, reach out, get some help. And I was able to talk her off the ledge. I'm like, listen, you knew this. And it only took 2 weeks and the headaches quickly subsided. So I do believe the Syntonics accelerated her recovery pathway. I mean, the proof is in the numbers. It's not just an emotional thing. So Syntonics in a nutshell are these prism-like lenses, and it's all specific to your injuries. But know that you have to undo the bad stuff first. Any other questions?
Sandy stole mine, but because I was going to ask the same thing. Dr. B, you're on here. Is there anywhere people can get that Syntonic therapy in North Dakota?
Hi guys, I'm a newbie to Syntonics, and
Okay.
I just took the course and found Lynne through that course. Thank you, Lynne. And basically, the biggest frustration for those of us who do traditional vision therapy with head injury is the exacerbation of symptoms. You're absolutely right, Lynne. And that frustration and that dilemma led me to search out other options, one being hyperbaric oxygen to try to quiet the brain and reduce the sympathetic overload that seems to be prevalent with a lot of people, especially with the acute concussion. But Syntonics is a different way of calming the brain with specialized filters, and it appears to have some great benefits that we're hoping to learn more about, and I'm learning more about right now. So,
yeah, it's there's a doctor, and he wrote a book, and it actually turned out to be my daughter's doctor. I didn't even know. And he wrote a book for layman's terms. And so I have to share with you also, I have such great respect for him. He's definitely old school. And right before COVID happened, Alex, she was in the NYU Langone concussion clinic, right? Because she was in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And they gave her vestibular therapy, and it was all remote. Because of COVID. And fortunately, she was with me in Boston at the time. So I got to watch it, and I'm like, this is not vestibular therapy. This is not what your sister went through. This is like almost a joke. And then add in the element of telehealth where they can't even really see what's, right. I mean, it was good for what it was, and it got her some help, but to be honest with you, it was clearly not that great. And so some things just have to really be in person. I'm a firm believer in that. And she had the opportunity to go with Rusk with virtual vision therapy. And I was holding my breath. I'm going, oh dear God, please go with Dr. Shapiro, please. And she said, I just really liked the way he spoke to me. And he just wrote everything down, and he really explained every step of the way. And I know he's old school, Mom, but I just felt better. And I was really glad she got to that decision on her own, because if you have that champion as a clinician with you, oh my God, it's going to make a difference. And I do find, David and Daphne, are you here? I don't know if you're here, I can't tell, but I can tell they're great and we're going to do great things. So I have to share with you something else, right? This is what's going on the dashboard. So we want to make it fun and we want to make it happy. And I get it. It's hard, but Sally will be there every step of the way. But we want to create some games that are really interesting for people. And I kind of mean Candy Crush for the brain, but I also mean something that's going to give you an achievable result, right? But second to that, one of the things I slightly shared with you was that Natalie had a lot of start and stops. And I'm going to explain to you what I meant by that. We went to one, quote, vestibular physical therapist. And I was to the point where I was exasperated myself. And I'm like, listen, if you don't know anything about traumatic brain injuries, please don't waste our time. My daughter's case is crazy. Everything broke. And they're like, no, we know. I'm like, okay. Well, there was one point, no joke, one point that they took her head manually and they were having her stare at this Post-it note on the wall and they're like shaking her head violently. She immediately starts vomiting, like she's being reconcussed through this therapy. And I'm like, okay, stop, right? So you have to know what's going on. So I kept trying to find the right doctors, right, that could actually even understand this. And if they didn't understand it, were willing to take their time with her. So fortunately, because she did have a stroke, we were able to find really good therapists in the stroke clinic, which was just by happenstance that we got into that group. So that worked out great for vestibular. That got her to a certain point. There's a certain overlap of vestibular and ocular, but her heart never got right again. And my daughter was a Division I swimmer. So what was happening with her heart is it would plummet to 40 and explode above 200 in microseconds, and she would pass out in bed. Right. So she had this constant low level of oxygen, this constant battle with that. So upper cervical finally got that fixed. But there, again, it's like, how do you figure all this out? This is where once we get, and we have about 500 people on the dashboard, which is phenomenal. So we can start making these projections. But once we get enough people in the same kind of injury pathway, meaning all left temple injuries with a soccer ball, right? Let's find 100 of those people. Now we can start adding in, what therapies did you do? And let's say, okay, we use Tom Brown, and Tom Brown, your numbers are going up, and up is not good. We want you to go down. We don't want increases in your symptoms. We want decreases. So Tom Brown, how come you're up here, but your whole group is down here? And this is where we have AI algorithms that we're testing now that we can actually recommend and say, Tom Brown, did you try vestibular? Tom Brown, did you try vision therapy, right? And that is going to be the power of what this dashboard will do for patients, because right now it's a shoot from the hip. And let me tell everybody the flat out truth about clinical trials. 1 year does not make a clinical trial. They are 5 to 8 years, okay? So do not use COVID as your example. But again, I know how this works, so we can really force the hands of this group through our data, and I can do it. So, but here's the other thing I didn't tell you. This is really exciting. How do you know when you hit the wall, right? How do you know when you had too much therapy? Does anybody have any indication besides being in bed for the next 3 days, or besides having a severe migraine or vomiting like my daughter? Does anybody have any indication how they know when they had way too much therapy? I really got to hear this answer. Anybody?
You can type in the chat, you can talk, unmute yourself.
All right, I'm going to give you the answer. Because I'm like a kid in the candy store. Like you guys just, I can't take it. I noticed. So, okay, let's go back to my job. My job was observational research. That was, and predictive modeling. Those were my expertise. Okay. So I would take my daughter to a doctor every single day, and I would look at her, and I started to notice something was physically off, and I couldn't figure it out. Okay. So I started looking at sections of her. Now, one of the conditions that my daughter had, and she still has it, but it's more manageable. Are you guys familiar with when people have terrible diabetes and their legs will swell and it's to the point where they can't walk, right? So that's a very extreme case. My daughter would have such extreme systemic swelling that you would think you could take a pin and prick her and she would be like exploding water, like a Oompa Loompa or a water balloon. Well, we couldn't figure out what was causing it. And of course, we went to a lot of doctors and they all wanted to put her on the birth control pill because they said it was hormonal. And I'm like, are you kidding me? When did that become indicated for swelling, right? Systemic swelling. I go, it's her head. Nothing has happened to her except this head injury. So they did say one thing to me. They said, well, we think it has something to do with electrolytes, this and that. And I'm like, electrolytes? So of course I tried to Google it. I went to PubMed and I'm searching and searching, there's nothing. So I went back to what my basics were. I'm like, okay, what do electrolytes do? What do kidneys do? What do all these things do? And it was pH levels. So I discovered that if we gave her high pH water, her swelling was reduced. Now, I can't explain the science behind it. All I can explain is that it worked. But her swelling was so severe before we did this that on a hot day in the South, she couldn't walk a half a block because her swelling was so intense. She had to get off her feet, go upside down, and wait for a few hours with ice packs. Like, that's no way for a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old or a 50-year-old to live. That is just not right. So I started to really track her. This is how the origin of the dashboard started. I started to track, okay, that symptom happened. What happened environmentally? What did she eat? I was looking at everything. It landed in her eyes. And it's not in her eyeballs. It's not in her pupils. It's her eyelids. And I was able to reproduce it in many, many people on our dashboard. When a person hits the wall, meaning they did too much, whether it's exercise, whether it's too much trying to be a normal person again, what you had before your injury, there is an inordinate swelling in their eyelids and they do not behave the same. And it's very, very clear. And so while my daughter Alex was going through her therapy, we were documenting her eyelids. And you could see when she was having very difficult days, was trying to read too much, was on the computer too much, one eyelid would swell disproportionately to the other. So if you guys are going through therapy, you won't necessarily feel it. You have to look at your eyelids. You can use your fingers and you can press on them and you can feel the puffiness. And it's an autonomic response, we discovered. And so when you are overloaded, your autonomic system is being overloaded. So if you start to feel your eyelids swell, stop whatever you're doing and take a break. That's my word of advice. But we're putting an app in to take pictures of your eyes for you so you can figure it out with the computer.
Way cool, Lynn, way cool.
Thank you, David. I knew you would like that. It was a long answer. Sorry, you guys. So, all right. So do we want to look at the dashboard? Do you want to try to register as a group? I mean, you guys tell me what you want to do.
Yeah, let's do that. I would like to see that.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing and then I'm going to go over to the internet. And then that way everybody can do it. And you know what, if you want to do it with me, please do it with me. So, all right, let me go back to share. So you should see our homepage. Do you see the Power of Patience homepage, everybody? Okay, awesome. Yeah. So It's pretty straightforward. Like I said, I'm going to scoot this over and minimize it. You literally just go over to register and you would say new user. And it takes you to.
Now we're seeing your email. I think you want to click back up on your top.
Oh, okay. Let me do a new share. Share.
There, now we are. Okay.
Okay, awesome. All right, feel free to answer my emails for me. So this is so from the home page, let me go back just so right here. So you would go to powerpatients.com and you would click register new user. And the first one is just a preview, and this is Sally the therapy dog, and this just is like, this is what you're going to get, and it takes 3 little steps, and you click start. And the first is just your basic information, like what kind of a patient are you? And one of the things, like I said, is we have now different kinds of brain injury people coming on. If you register as a caregiver, you can actually track for more than one person. And we also made a distinction between had a TBI, and we went back and forth a lot with discussions about, are you a TBI patient, meaning are you currently seeing doctors, or you've had a TBI or more than one, but you're not really seeing anybody, but you still are symptomatic. So, you know, we're trying to be as comprehensive as possible. But again, let us know if it doesn't work, because we're happy to go ahead and fix these things for you. So you put in your gender, and then you just type in your name. Whoops. In my case, I will do Lynne, and I will do Becker. And then let me scroll down a little bit. Your mobile phone number is optional. You do not have to do it. The reason we do ask for it is because we are adding another feature so that you can text Sally if you're having a really difficult time, where it goes right into your dashboard. So you don't even have to log into the dashboard. So, but it is an option. And then you put in your email address. And you put in your date of birth. And one of the things that we have to require to be child protective is you have to be above, they say 13, but we make it 14 because I like to be a little bit more careful. But again, a parent can do this for you. So if there was a referral, so let's say that the North Dakota group was like, hey, we want to get on board. We have a partnership program where we share data from our site back to the people that register. So in this case, I'll say I'm part of the Georgia group. Country is the US, and we do have international. So if you have anybody overseas, feel free to do that as well. And then you have your password, and you click to agree to the terms and conditions. And the terms and conditions say that I agree to let my de-identified data be used for clinical trial research. You do not have to do clinical trials yourself, but this is the only way that I will be able to afford to support the company, is by using the aggregated data that is de-identified for research purposes. So you click on submit at the bottom. I'm trying to hide this so that, but it's not hiding very well. So then you put in the date of your most recent TBI. So in this case, you would click on the calendar. And if my most recent TBI didn't occur in this year, you would just scroll up a little bit. And let's say it was in 2019. And I'm going to say it was March of 2019, and it happened on the 4th. And it doesn't matter. Get as close as possible. Now, this is where we ask you to describe the event as much as possible. We're adding another feature to this, which is going to be audio. So we're going to have a little button here so that if you don't want to type, you can just speak it. And this is very, very important. I cannot tell you enough. The more information you tell us about the injuries, the better it's going to be for those algorithms that I was speaking to you about. So in this case, I'm just going to put gibberish for right now, but tell us as much as possible. And then we ask for how many TBIs, and I'm going to say I had 2, and you click on save and continue. And then this is where we ask you to verify about your injury. So one of the things that we also have noticed, the reason that narrative is important is because people misclassify themselves. For example, one woman said, I had an accident, but when she wrote in her narrative, she wrote, I was on my horse, I had no helmet, the horse got spooked, he took off, and I fell. And our computer algorithm stopped it and said, no, didn't stop her, stopped our cleaning of the data and said, no, she didn't have an accident, she had a fall. And we manually inspect every one of them. And when we looked at it, we were like, wow, she didn't just fall. She fell, like, you know, trip and fall. She fell from a horse, so 6 feet above. She fell from a speeding horse. And what did she hit? You know, the concrete or the grass. So this is why, again, injury pathways are very important, because what you call a fall, in her case, she had speed, she had height, she had a bunch of things. So you would have to suspect that how you're injured is going to impact your recovery. So I'll say sports in this case, and I'm going to say I was hit on the top of my head. And to show you the customization, I'm going to type in jaw. I got hit also in my jaw, because that's very different than the side of your head. And I'm going to say that I lost consciousness. I was definitely disoriented and had this funky stare. Save and continue. If you notice, we have a little progress bar up here as well. Cognitive symptoms. This should say symptoms, but something's going on with Bing. So I usually do this in Chrome, so I'm not quite sure why it doesn't say symptoms. But this is where I was talking about, tell us about your symptoms. And in this case, this is where we break it down by cognitive, sleep, emotional. You can check as many or as few that you have. There is no limit. And again, you put in whatever you feel comfortable with. And if we don't have it, add it. So I'm going to say, okay, so for cognitive, yeah, and I can't find the right words. And sleep, I have poor sleep. I am always fatigued. Let's see, I'll go to emotions. I have a lot of depression. I get angry a lot. I'm not motivated. And I seem to have panic attacks. Physical symptoms. I can't seem to smell anything. I can't seem to have any coordination. And I don't taste anything either. And then we now worked with some speech pathologists, because there's so much information that they can get from these symptoms as well. I don't have good organizational skills. I can't plan in advance. I can't multitask anymore, right? Vision. Now this is kind of fun. I like this one. If you don't know what double vision is, we have a few that we have pop-ups to help, because what we did discover is that some people call double vision, and it's not what a doctor would call double vision. So we have those pop-ups. In this case, I have severe dry eyes, and I'm bothered by light. And my eyes are always itchy. And this is another one. This is where your words will move. They're kind of like jumping around on the page. Now, we also knew after doing some research that headaches caused by the computer, or excuse me, by your brain injury, are important to isolate where your headaches are. And so if I go back to the example I talked about with my daughter Alex, when she was trying to do her vision therapy, she was getting headaches at all different places in her head, which meant that it was firing off those sections that weren't working right. So I'm going to say the back bottom of my head is where my headache is. And I'm also getting headaches behind my eyes. All right. And then I'm going to save and continue. And then these are all of my symptoms. And so again, something's going on with Chrome here, or Bing here. But Sally says, pick your top 3. Okay. We only ask you to start with 3 in the beginning so that you get accustomed to the dashboard. And then once you're done with that, you can add it. You can add it as soon as you want, but we ask you to just start with 3 initially. So I'm going to talk about panic attacks. I'm going to talk about track brain fog, and I want to track bothered by light. Okay. And then I click save and continue. And now these are the triggers, the social determinants of health that I talked about. So we have a wellness trigger. So we know that it can impact positively as well as negatively. So I'm going to say, yeah, it seems like when I exercise a lot, I have trouble Same with caffeine, same with stress. So what causes you to have more symptoms? That's how we want you to look at this. So if you get in the car, or if you take cabs or something like that, do you have trouble after that? If you're on the computer a lot, or the TV or the phone. So I'm going to say, this is my baseline. These are all the things that I do on a typical day, and they seem to bother me. Now, we don't want you to say, this bothers my vision. We just want you to tell us what seems to exacerbate your condition. That's it. We're going to let the computer do all of that work for you. And so environmental, I've noticed that when I go out into the bright sun, I get really, really bad headaches. And I'm trying to think of another one that might be hiking. I'm going to put hiking down, because we do know that altitude has an impact on people's brain injuries. And then Sally wants to know, when do you want to be emailed? And when you click on it, by default, they all pop up, and you're allowed to change them. So I don't want to be bothered on Monday. I'm okay with Tuesday and Thursday and Saturday. And by default, it comes up at 4 p.m., but you can change it to AM, you can change it to 3 p.m., whatever you want. And you click save and continue. And then you get an email, and it says, go and verify your email. And I actually want to verify my email. I have to stop sharing my screen again, or I can just log out and then, let's see. Can you guys see my screen still, or no?
Yes, I can still see it.
Okay, can you see the email screen that says verify?
Nope, just the email confirmation one.
Okay, I'm gonna switch to this one really fast. Can you see verify now?
Yes.
Awesome. So this is the email that you get. It says, hi, Lynne at Power Patients. Welcome, verify your email. So I do that. And what it does is takes me right here. Can you see where it says go to your dashboard, email confirmation? I'm going to guess no.
No, we're on verify your email still.
Okay, so let me go to that one now. Oops. Okay, so now when I clicked on that verify the email, it's 7B, and it says your email is now verified. Can you see that?
Yes.
Awesome. And then you click this button and you go to your dashboard. And again, if you don't verify your email, you can actually turn it off, and a lot of times what happens, it might go into somebody's spam folder. So we can undo it for you if you're having trouble. So one of the things that we try to be careful about, again, vision specific, is we have a dark mode for people. So you can turn this on if you're having trouble. And I intentionally keep this short and sweet because I don't want people to be on the computer for too long. We know that excessive computer use is going to cause fatigue and headaches and things like that. So it's very straightforward. How are you feeling today? What's going on? Well, I feel pretty good today. I had some really good sleep. And so if you noticed, here's my first symptom, and this is my baseline, and you're going from no brain fog to your absolute worst. And so I'm like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good. So that's about where I feel today. And panic attacks. I'm really not having any panic attacks. So I'm going to go way down here. Okay. And what about light? I haven't been outside. So I'm going to go, no, I'm not having any trouble at all. And then here's your social determinants of health. So what did I come in contact with today? And again, add whatever you feel you need to add as well. So I did have a lot of caffeine today, to be honest with you. I am on the computer a lot every day, and I hit save, and you're absolutely done. That is how fast it is. Now, this is where you can add more symptoms, and this is where if you wanted to track multiple times in a day, you would just journal and use this, and it's very powerful. We also have this goal setting right here. And so one of the things that we encourage people to do, and we'll start working on this in terms of reports for patients, is to have a goal in conjunction with their provider. So you just simply click on edit and you type in your first goal. And so I'm just going to do it something as simple as I want to sleep better. I'm not going to put 3 goals. I'm just going to do it for the first one. And then you go back home. And now if you look, I want to sleep better. So as you can see, here's my first day that I tracked. And here it is over here. But I can show you, I can log out of this and I can go into the bigger system that I use for typical daily demos. And it will show you the huge long timeline. Before I do that, let me kind of finish with the dashboard. If you notice, here's a 2 with a little triangle. These are your SDOHs, your triggers. So the more triggers you have, chances are these numbers are going to go way up. Now we can look at just my social determinants of health, just my triggers, or I can look at what's the 30-day view. So again, this was my starting point. So it's the 30 days up to today. We add in only one variable at a time because we don't want people to be overwhelmed. And I'm going to show you why when we go to the other screen. So when I hover over this, we also can say, what did I do that I had such a good day? I only really had 2 things going on. I wasn't that overly active. So this is where you're able to start to understand your own trends and how can you manage your condition even better. You can change this to a bar chart, add them in again, one at a time, and then you can export this as a PDF, which again, I want to log out and log back in and show you a bigger one. We have a media tab. And so once a month, we host webinars for free and we put them on here. And so this was Stroke Awareness Month. This is upper cervical. We have a series of vision therapy. We did a clinical trial one, the music therapy. Oh my gosh, we were doing sing-alongs. It was really good. This coming month, we're doing yoga with Love Your Brain Yoga as well. So we're starting to partner with them. So you can go in and you can learn all about these different webinars that we have and just watch them over and over again. And then here comes Daphne, and then we click on home. So before I continue, I'm going to go to Chrome. I'm going to do a new share. Right here. And I want to show you what a dashboard is going to look like that's been used many times, right? So you go back to powerofpatients.com. And in this case, I'm going to log in as a returning user. And I just have it so it memorizes who I am. And in this case, I want to track for, I'm a caregiver in this example, okay? So I'm not going to go through all of this, but what I want to show you is the 30-day view. So if you look here, you can see this trend that I was talking about. So I'm going to add in one of them at a time. This is where the power comes in, where you're talking and speaking with your doctor and you're like, okay, why do I have these up and downs? Remember, the higher the number, the worse your symptoms are. So we want these down here. So, and as we hover over them, you can see what were my comments. And this is where we're able to start figuring out the trends. When I click export as a PDF, as you can see, we ask you because we allow you to journal. And again, this is all patient-centered. It's up to you. You can include or exclude your symptom notes. And a patient just simply said, there's some things I have that are personal, I don't want to share. And I said, that's a great idea. And we added it, right? So this is all about you guys. I can't emphasize this enough. So I don't have anything that I'm not afraid of sharing. So I'm going to show you, let's see if it can move my screen. What does a 30-day chart look like? And if you look as I scroll down, it goes from your most recent to your latest dates. And then these are the descriptions that I had along with my scores. And patients are emailing this to doctors all the time, which works out great. So I have a confession, Daphne and Hannah, I made a mistake. I had on my calendar 3:30 for the webinar, and it was 2:30, so I'm sorry, you guys. But that's it. I'm going to do a stop sharing. Oh, and now Anna's there. Hi, Anna. So are there any, do you want me to put that back up, Carly?
No, that's okay. You're good.
Okay.
That was great. That was perfect.
Daphne, Anna, and Hannah, my bad. I had the wrong hour on my calendar, so sorry, guys. Carly saved me.
Central time zone here, so 2:30 for us right now.
Yeah.
Confusing. And North Dakota is actually 2 time zones. We have mountain time too, a little corner of the state, so that gets interesting.
That's actually what I thought it was. I thought it was.
Okay, yeah,
I
no,
thought
we're
it was.
mountain. We're on the eastern side, or majority of North Dakota falls into central time zone.
Oh, okay, okay.
There's a little sliver in the western side that's an hour off, but.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. So Daphne,
Do you want them
you
to
know,
introduce themselves or anything, or talk at all, or just Daphne and?
Daphne, I will show you this all separately, so don't worry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and so can we
Yes,
watch
you can watch the recording too. It will be posted on our website by tomorrow, usually by the end, usually pretty early tomorrow. I will put it in the chat for you, the link that you can go to see it. And then you can also register for continuing ed, and you can see other webinars we've done, like Dr. B that's on here right now. He has done a webinar Wednesday for us. And then you can see upcoming ones too.
So are there any questions? Did anybody do a walk along with me and register as we were going through this by any chance? Do you have any questions? We have a question, no question?
We got a yes, easy to use. Good, Lori, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, very easy to use.
Yeah.
What was that book you recommended? You mentioned a book about
The Syntonics.
Yeah.
So it's not out yet. I told Dr. Shapiro that I will be happy to help him spread the word. So he's hoping the fall it will be published and things like that. So yeah, and it was written for layman's terms, so very consumable by the public. But good. I'm glad that we had somebody do a walk along with me. I mean, it really is set up to be so simple, and we cater to whatever it is that you say. Hey, this would be something more logical. Did you consider that? And so we can't always do everything as fast as I told you about, like just simply having an option to have comments or no comments, but other stuff. So we are building out for a second version, and that's where we're going to bring in the audio. That's where we'll bring in the eye pictures and things like that as well. One of the things, again, to entice people is to have them bring others onto the dashboard. So again, it will always be free, but one of the games that we want to do is, are you guys familiar with Where's Waldo? Have you ever, done that, right?
Yeah.
So there's an ocular brain cognition version of that.
Okay.
And it's fun. And it's actually, but again, because we have to be really careful with moving objects, right? One of the things that we learned, again, patients told us, hey, stop with the accordions. Don't let the pages roll up and down. It's hurting my eyes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not even take that into consideration, that the movement on a screen is going to really hurt. But when you think about it, as I showed you the example of how words jump when people have vision distortion, right? It makes sense. Now you're jumping even more, right? You're exponentially increasing that problem. So one of the things that we do is just subtly, as we know what we can do on, again, behind the scenes, as we know that they don't have vision issues, we can give them harder vision challenges on these brain games. So, we had one person say, I want to share my stuff to Facebook. And I'm like, okay, no. So we will not share to social media, okay?
Good.
If you want to print your report and post it, feel free. But we are not opening it up to Facebook.
No, I don't think we all need to know that. Can I ask your daughter, was her diabetes before or after her injury? Did she develop that?
She doesn't have diabetes.
Oh, I thought she said she did. Whoa,
No.
She gets so
swollen.
It's like diabetes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually did a lot of type 2 diabetes research for Weight Watchers, believe it or not. And they actually came out with a whole program specifically for people with diabetes. And actually, in my career path, because I didn't stay focused in just one therapeutic area, when you're in university settings, you usually have to go from grant to grant. And so you bring best practices with you. Right. And in that, I was always curating and bringing my telehealth applications and all of my big data and all of that with me, which was really nice. But we did the first remote health coaching for patients with diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And it was very powerful. We actually beat drug therapy. Eat right, get off your medicine. That was the bottom line. Very cool. But that was where we saw the swelling. Extreme swelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does anybody else have a question about the dashboard or ideas or reports, or is there a different group we should talk to? Anything? Oh, you guys are easy.
Yeah, so cool today. You explained everything really well too, so very thorough.
Well, let me ask you this.
What if there's
I have a question for you guys. So is anybody interested in a clinical trial? Because one of the researchers I'm working with from Mount Sinai, she's probably, if not the best in the US, possibly the world, in neurocognitive research. And she is so excited about the dashboard that we are starting to work together on different grant initiatives. But she has an existing research project that is telehealth, and it's all neurocognitive. And I'm happy to bring you guys into her program, through the dashboard, if you would like it. So again, remember, everything is all about you. Like, when was the last time somebody said that and meant it, But if you want, should I, Carly, put my email in the chat?
Yes, please do that. Yeah, there might be some interested, just not wanting to speak up yet. Brooke asked about how often will you publish findings?
You mean from the clinical trial perspective?
I think so. Brooke, do you want to elaborate a little more on that at all? Yes, she's saying.
Okay, I'm putting to everybody, here is my email. You mean findings like when I was talking about if we get enough people in the injury buckets? Funny you should ask. Hannah, down in the corner down there, that is her job this summer. Okay. We are going to create new charts, new reports, so you can see where are you in relation to the other people in your bucket. You won't know who the people are, right? That's all about the de-identified data. But I don't know, Hannah, do you want to speak up? Do you think you have it done by this week? I'm kidding.
Not quite. I wish I could, but
yeah, but that's really exciting, and I can't wait to get that. But so we have to get more people, right? So like I said, we have about 500 people, but one of the things that we are discovering, we have 75% women on our dashboard, which is really, really exciting. We have a lot of assaults, which is disturbing to me. And you know how the industry is reporting, or the CDC is reporting, that falls are the leading cause for traumatic brain injuries? Well, in our population, it's car accidents.
Ours too, actually. Yeah, we just recently did a survey, and in those that answered anyways, in North Dakota, we got, car accidents was ahead of falls.
Yeah, and then men, the number 2 is sports, and women is assault. That's the really big concerning issue as well. But again, because we're international, we have a really good constituency in the UK, and Australia is starting to kind of come on strong as well too. But you know, one of the things that we have to really consider is that I don't think our data is wrong. I think because it's been so underreported for so many years that I challenge what the CDC is reporting. I mean, and that's the healthy way of getting research. Like, well, this is what we're seeing. So, yeah. Is there anything else? Anybody? Does anybody do yoga in the group? That would be another question. Have you done, you do? Yeah, who doesn't do yoga? But have you explored, Brooke is like, yes. Have you explored the Love Your Brain with the pranayama breathing? Did they come and do a chat with you?
Yes, we've had a Love Your Brain, several do. They spoke at our conference. Well, Kevin came to our conference years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, he was actually our first trip. His first trip by himself was to North Dakota. They figured it was safe enough to send him on his own here. But yeah, so he came to our conference many years ago, and then we have continued to have a relationship with them since, pretty much. We've had them speak several times at conference. They've done a Web Wednesday. They've done support groups with us. Yes, I am constantly plugging Love Your Brain, and I think any kind of yoga really is great, and meditation and that deep breathing and all of that. And we've done some in-person yoga too through IndieBin. So, but yeah, we definitely try to.
Oh, good. Well, they're our guests this month as well. Good. So good. I'll tag you guys in it, and then you can spread the word.
Yes, please do. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that new program they came out with is incredible. That free one.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and I'm sure, assuming they'll probably explain all of that to you. It's really good. So
okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
We work with Shiloh quite a bit. So.
Oh, good. Yeah. So we'll do that, and then I'll forward you a link to see if anybody might be interested in the telehealth application. It's neurocognitive work with Kristen Dams O'Connor, and happy to, send folks over to her. Great person. Can't speak enough about her. And we have some really big things coming up for the fall as well. So, fall football is returning. I personally am not a big football fan. I cringe when I watch people get crushed all the time. And that's a group that it's pretty interesting when you look at the stats in around 2007, 2005, a lot of the emerging brain injury research kind of stopped, and it started picking back up in 2015. It stopped most likely because that was when oncology and chemo drugs were really taking off, and the HIV area and things like that. And so a lot of resources went into those areas. And then when the whole CTE and the NFL came back around in the 2012, 2015 era, that's when the TBI studies start to re-emerge in the publications. And so it's pretty interesting. So yeah, we're trying to do a lot, in terms of preventive, and in terms of, hey, keep your eyes and ears open with the football that's coming up for the fall. So trying to work on some big initiatives around that as well.
Great. right, anybody have anything else for Lynne?
Let's see. All right, so I think I answered everything in the chat as well. That was kind of easy. You guys are quiet.
They are quiet for the most part, pretty quiet.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad I got to have the opportunity to present and show everybody. If you have my email, please reach out. I'll send the stuff to you, Carly, so you can follow up with the group as well.
Yes,
And,
and
you
then
know-
we probably want to get added to that referral list too, so we'll be in touch about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Learn more about that and how that would work and
Yep.
and all of that, and maybe you can come to, we have a concussion symposium coming up and our Mind Matters conference too. Maybe we can twist your arm to.
Oh, good. Yeah.
When
When is
too, because I think this is great information.
is that in person?
The concussion symposium is not in person. That one is all virtual.
Okay.
Our conference this year, ideally, we'd like to try to do both virtual and in person. So we got to figure out the technology aspect of how that would look. But that's not till March. But concussion symposium is on World Concussion Day, so September 17th is when we're going to hold that one. So
Okay.
I'll reach out about that too. And
Oh yeah, that'd be
even
perfect.
like a nice little. I don't know, I'm trying to think of like a blurb we could give people too, just to like, hey, track your symptoms on this. Like if you had a little infographic or something we could share like on our Facebook every month or two or so, just every once in a while.
Sure.
To remind people about, this is an option for tracking symptoms and that kind of thing.
Well, I think one of the things that we could do, and since Hannah is here, so we can put our posts onto your page, but
Perfect.
Hannah, maybe we can be creative and we'll start saying, oh, we now have 5 North Dakota people, right?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And we could be creative with something like that. And make it specific to you guys.
Yeah, that would be neat. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Awesome.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, Lynne, and look forward to hearing about more trials.
Yeah. So Daphne, I'm sorry about the mix up, but you and I have a lot to talk about. And I'm going to give her a plug because I want to explore doing some research work with her hyperbaric oxygen chamber. And it's amazing. I know that it's tried and true with scuba divers, and it made perfect sense when I watched her presentation. So look more for what we're going to do together.
Great, we will do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yes, have a good rest of the day, everybody.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.